all trades.
I know.
Maybe I'll ask.
Sounds like a steering committee problem.
Yeah, I know. I don't know how much they're gonna, how useful their subcommittee and stuff. I don't know. They're gonna have to look at it all.
Right? Well, that's, no, I was happy that we had it on Tuesday last week instead of Monday.
It's good to help have it narrowed down.
My son's soccer game, they had a makeup game on
We should have
Monday.
had us narrow it down and narrow it down.
Now he's in
We should, I don't think we should be sending the whole list.
Alpha High School has
All my
basketball
kids.
camp.
I think we should just get rid of it.
I got him signed up.
Let them relook at the top five, whatever they
He's
want.
very
That would have been
athletic.
significantly
What I
easier.
found interesting, he is a left-handed.
Those rules were made before I got
He's
here.
always right-handed, so I, no, it's not, because that's the high average.
He throws right-handed.
Next year,
Yeah.
now, my brother's left-handed, so he was also a left-handed pitcher,
Yeah.
which makes it really interesting. He played gosh for like 7 years.
Boy, we've got a lot of people up here tonight.
There's a lot of people.
Yeah, but anyway, he played at Purdue for a while, one and done. I was married 17 years. Yeah, he's 6. All my friends have kids graduating this year, and I have a 6-year-old, so
What?
we got to do a lot of traveling. So that's kind of nice.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go.
All that out of the way, and now we're just like, we have
I think I'm gonna find a
for
bar that has a
nice to be
patio.
able to dedicate that to feeling.
That's what I'm gonna do.
How many do you have?
I have 2.
Okay,
I got here
okay.
ridiculously early
Both
today.
going to the same college.
I've never actually went over here to the
Grand Valley.
the park area. I've never actually been over here. And I said, huh,
Yep, yep.
they did a really good job over here. No.
They have it.
Struggle
Yeah.
quite a while, but he's healthy.
Yeah, Saturday, Chester has one on Saturday night. I try to avoid downtown Chesterton like a plague. This Saturday morning in Chesterton are rough.
Do they have a specific major for that they're doing
His
general?
daughter wants to be an author.
Okay.
Everybody ready?
Oh,
All right. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A roll call, please, Vicki.
Okay, Jim Diggs,
Here.
Mike Brickner,
Here.
Eric Wagner,
Here?
Ruth Gant, here, and Rebecca Tucker.
here.
5 present.
To our presenters, you will get 15 minutes to speak. It'll start at the time that you start speaking, which is kind of a no-brainer. And then there will be a 15-minute question and answer section. Kurt will let you know when you have 5 minutes left on the clock. So our first presenters are the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Northwest Indiana.
Approval of the April 25th minutes.
So moved. Give it a second.
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Same sign. Motion approved.
Okay, thank you. And just before the meeting, Deb sent me the minutes from your last meeting, and I emailed them all to you. So we'll put that on next week's agenda.
Okay.
It was just before you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Boys and Girls Club?
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Biggs, councilmen, and citizens appointees for the opportunity. My name is Ryan Smiley. I am humbled and honored to serve as the President and CEO of Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Northwest Indiana. With me is Shire Kish, our Vice President of Finance and Philanthropy, and then I brought our entire crowd with me today in support, but I've got all of our executive leadership team as well as members of our executive committee here with me in attendance today. So appreciate the opportunity. I know this is your 13th meeting, and you've got a few after ours, so we'll try and go as quickly as possible. But we've got some slides that we will advance through. As a not-for-profit organization, we're really guided by our mission, vision, and values. And what I want to highlight here is our board has really taken a commitment to inclusion, diversity, and equity recently. And we most recently updated our vision statement. And then our board will be signing a commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Because of our reach and our geographic scale and footprint, this is something that we believe we're going to be a leader in for youth in our communities. Next slide, please. Very briefly, timeline of the organization. We've been here for 52 years. Valparaiso Club opened in 1970 in Gardner School in 71, and you can see the timeline of our other facilities here. I will note that in 2018, we merged both Lake and Porter County Boys and Girls Clubs and became the Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Northwest Indiana. We have 10 facilities and 11 before and after school club-based sites. We are the largest Boys and Girls Club organization in the state of Indiana. There are 31 separate entities across the state of Indiana, and we are the second largest in the entire Midwest, larger than Chicago and Indianapolis. So we're really proud of our footprint and the impact that we have on kids and families. Next couple slides, I'm just going to show you our facilities. I think a picture says 1,000 words or something like that. And then ADA stands for Average Daily Attendance, not Americans with Disabilities Act. So you can see our future club in Valparaiso set to open on May 31st, right, Mark? If everything goes according to plan. That's a $9 million project. We've raised about $8.7 million on that project, all privately funded with the exception of $150,000 ARPA funds, excuse me, from the city of Valparaiso towards that project. In total, it'll be about $9.3 million. Next slides, please. Portage Club is 26 years old, and our South Haven Club is 40 years old, and you can see the numbers that we're serving on average there today, which I'll talk a little bit about the impact COVID has had on those numbers. Next slide, please. This is our Chesterton Club. Again, we have 4 facilities in Porter County, Valpo, Chesterton, South Haven, and Portage. We renovated and expanded this club in 2017. It was a $5.5 million project, and what we learned there is if you build it, they will come. Kids want to have a choice, and they vote with their feet, and so this model has really enabled us to prove our impact by attracting kids, giving them programs and services they can't get elsewhere in a state-of-the-art facility. Next page, please. 2 examples I mentioned, we do span both counties, but we're just talking about Porter County specifically with you here today. But this shows what we did. One good thing about COVID for us is when the schools and our clubs closed in March of 2020, we had plans to renovate our Hammond facility, and you can see after the renovation, it's one of very few clubs that we've seen an increase in average daily attendance, about 30% from pre-COVID to our current numbers today. Next slide, also our East Chicago Catherine House Boys and Girls Club. Again, the pre-COVID and the post-renovation, about a 25% increase in average daily attendance. Next slide, please. When we talk about the impact COVID has had on us, we look at kind of 2 different measures, one of which I would call a mission metrics, and that's the kids that we serve, and the other would be a business metric or the financial impact that it's had. You can see here a 45% decrease pre-COVID to current in our Porter County clubs. Kids found alternatives. We were closed for several months. We opened up and then started to scale back, but we're missing a lot of teens. I think they found alternatives and got engaged in other things and really didn't come back to the club. However, those clubs that we renovated, those 3 that I showed you, we've had a 35% increase in average daily attendance from pre-COVID to current numbers today. Shire's going to talk a little bit, next slide please, about the financial impact of COVID on the organization.
Thank you, Ryan. So the impact of COVID on the organization in terms of earned revenue, which is revenue generated and earned at the club or through activities at the club, has been pretty substantial. From 2019 to 2020, we saw a 10% decrease in earned revenues to the tune of about $200,000 decrease. From 2019 compared to 2021, that number increased by up to 20%. We saw a more than $400,000 decrease in revenues earned at the club just because of lower attendance and lower ADA. Our summer camps had lower numbers. But all of this at the same time, we were experiencing a 15% increase in expenses during that same time frame, mainly driven by our Return to Learn, our virtual and e-learning program, in which we had 12-hour days, which is much unusual for us to be running 12-hour programs throughout the course of the school year, with a higher staff-to-kid ratio, because our staff are absolutely fantastic, but when we had a transition from traditional after school to a 12-hour program, we had to increase the number of staff in order to make sure that that program was being ran properly. Next slide, please.
I'll never forget March 13th, 2020, got a call from several superintendents saying they were closing indefinitely and could we serve their kids, and at the time we could not. We had to follow local and state guidelines, and so our club shut down abruptly on March 13th, and we pivoted and shifted real quick. We made the conscious decision to retain as many employees as possible. We have about 225 employees. We retained over 90% of them before we knew of PPP loan existence. And what we did was we established a parent hotline, an e-learning assistance hotline, virtual programming at home, and we served over 263,000 meals during that time when kids were out of school before they came back into school. So for us, we as an organization had to shift. We had increased expenses, but then we opened in a limited capacity in the summertime of 2020. People went back to school, kids went back virtually. Virtually every school district was doing e-learning. At the time, in August of 2020, we opened all of our facilities to our kids and families to support e-learning and help them with their homework, which really enabled parents to be able to be gainfully employed. And because we are non-licensed and we were going to be open for 12 hours, we actually had to get an executive order from Governor Holcomb, Executive Order 2040, to be able to operate an all-day child care type of facility, but we know that our organization, our impact, and our staff were really able to help these kids and their parents during that time when schools were not in session. Next slide, please. We have received some some COVID funding. We did receive 2 PPP loans due to decrease in revenue in that formula. Those were forgiven. We've received 3 COVID grants, one from Lilly Endowment, which I don't even know if we applied for, but they were very generous and gave us over $300,000. And then Porter County Community Foundation and Legacy Foundation, respectively, gave us $10,000 and $20,000 to help with COVID expenses. We recently were awarded from the Indiana Department of Education a $4.1 million reimbursable grant over the course of 18 months to simply focus on learning loss that our kids have experienced in schools. This has required us to sign MOUs to share data with 11 school districts across both counties, in which we will be tracking these kids and communicating with them that we have to prove our impact to get this money reimbursed to us from the state over the next 18 months if we're able to perform to the standards and metrics in which we said we would. And then I mentioned the only ARPA funds that we have received are from the City of Valparaiso recently for our new project. Next slide, please. So we are asking for $4 million to touch all of our facilities across Porter County, and you can see here we do have several matches already committed. I will tell you the Portage renovation match is a pending grant, a statewide grant through Lilly Endowment from all Boys and Girls Clubs. We would put that towards Portage. We have received a portion and the written commitment of the $500,000 from South Haven from an anonymous donor that spearheaded our East Chicago and Hammond renovations. Valparaiso Capital is sitting right now at about $8.7 million. That'll be about a $9.3 million all in. And then we've got some improvements to do in Chesterton that were not finished, and we've got a grant pending that could be up to $50,000. So we've got match money available in most of these projects, and would like to invest in the capital infrastructure based on what we've seen, and we haven't been really able to do that in South Haven and Portage communities. I will tell you it's a large number, but we're asking for a one-time investment, not a contribution, not a donation, an investment. Next slide, please.
5 minutes.
Thank you. We know, based on 2015 University of Michigan study conducted for Boys and Girls Clubs of America, that $1 invested in a Boys and Girls Club has a $9.60 lifetime return on investment. This really primarily is driven through parental increased earnings, increased grades, and reduction in alcohol and drug abuse in kids. It's a very comprehensive study, but I think that number is very indicative on the work that we do, talking about the lifetime benefit to residents and a community. Next slide, please. Lastly, we know that there are other not-for-profit organizations that you guys fund here on an annual basis, 2 of which are state mandated and state funded. We are aware of that. But every year the county is giving out over $4 million to 4 other nonprofit organizations, and so we feel our one-time request of $4 million is a realistic approach given the impact and our history and what we're able to do with those funds that will have a return for generations to come. We've been here for 52 plus years. We're going to be here for 52 more, but we need to make some investments in our capital infrastructure, and we know the impact that has had on kids and families in other communities. So with your support, we would use those funds for our 4 clubs across Porter County to bring them up to state-of-the-art. I believe that is the last slide.
Thank you. A question. Have you received any ARPA funds from any municipalities within Lake County?
Jim, we have a written commitment for up to $10 million in ARPA funds from a Lake County municipality that would match another $10 million private contribution for a large-scale project that we can't announce publicly yet. But I do have a written commitment from a municipality in Lake County up to $10 million if we can match that, yes. And remember, these are all earmarked between the clubs and the county, so they wouldn't be crossing. Your funds would not cross into Lake. We can earmark those by cost center and show all of that.
So the $10 million that you might be getting, that would all go into Lake County?
In one club, in one community,
Correct.
for one
Okay.
project,
Thank
correct.
What is the amount of the ARPA funding that you got from the city of Valparaiso?
$150,000.
Did you get any other ARPA funds from any other municipalities in Porter County?
Nope.
No.
Very nice presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I'm sure you guys you're used to giving these, so
May I ask another question?
you absolutely can.
Thank you. $4 million, that is a big ask, and one of the matrix is, how is your request in proportion to your losses due to COVID? I know you have given some of a presentation on that, but you can pretty much show that the $4 million you've lost?
No, I wouldn't say that we've lost $4 million,
Okay.
no. I would say that between lost earned revenue and increased expenses, it's probably closer to half of that number over the course of the time,
Gotcha.
2.5 years. And, I was reminded today to not use the term post-COVID, because we're really not through it yet, quite honestly, so.
Understood.
And while Ryan's point is accurate, it's mainly the loss of kids coming to our clubs, and we've seen what happens when we renovate our clubs, and that they're breaking down the doors to get in after school, and so it's, while he's pointing to a small period of time, with renovated clubs, we'll be able to bring those average daily attendance back up and exceed pre-COVID or pre-2020 numbers.
Oh, absolutely. Anecdotally, I have a son that's 6 years old, and all of the moms were talking about touring the new Boys and Girls Club facility in the next 2 weeks to see. So I understand if you build it, they will come.
For sure.
Brian, you touched on something about delivering meals during the time the shutdown was occurring. How did you do that?
Through a grant that we have, we feed kids every day, so we've done it multiple ways. It was through that grant as well, and then some other partners that we partnered with. We did a lot with the food bank as well, and actually it was their food to our kids and our families.
So you were receiving the children into your facility?
No, it was all drive-through in a parking lot. Yeah, they'd come in, our staff was out there, and we'd put it in their trunk.
Oh,
Yeah.
good for you.
Mm-hmm. I mean, food insecurity is a real issue, even in Porter County and right here in Valparaiso with families.
Unfortunately, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't have any more questions. Does the board have any additional questions? Nothing? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good job. Hearing from us soon. Next up, Neighbors Educational Opportunities. Thank you. Start anytime you'd like.
Do you have a PowerPoint? Send it to you.
Uh-oh.
Well, you have copies of it, the audience just doesn't, so we'll go forward.
We'll just sit down.
I do not, but I emailed it on Friday. I think I copied you, Vicki, no? Okay, it's
That's
fine.
unfortunate. It's fine, though.
It's fine, we have this here, and
Since
you...
they're not scoring you out there, you
Okay.
got it to the right group.
And there was one typo on that one that was corrected on your hard copy, so we're good to go, so, all right. Thank you very much. My name is Rebecca Reiner. I'm the Executive Director and founder of Neighbors Educational Opportunities in Portage. That was an organization that was founded in 2011 as a nonprofit to take over for the services that had been previously offered by Portage Adult Education for 49 years.
And I'm Jerry Zarnicki. I'm the Assistant Executive Director for Neighbors Educational Opportunities. I've been with the organization since July.
Yeah. Growing up, my family mantra was there are no challenges, only opportunities, and this has definitely been lived out by me in the last 11 years with this organization, but I also can imagine that this opportunity that you're facing might feel a challenge at times, but I hope you see that it is an opportunity for the community as for it is for organizations like ours. I know that you have mounds of paper that I've shared in the past 2 months, so I hope that this presentation will just supplement what I have given you and really show how it is aligned with the intent of this grant. When I first came back to Portage, or to Valparaiso, after living away for many years, and was hired as an assistant director for Portage Adult Education, it was a real new experience for me. I was not that familiar with the barriers that many students faced in their lives to completing a high school education. I was raised in a family where you were bound for college, and that was all there was to it. And so I grew a real appreciation and sensitivity to the transformative nature that happens when somebody is given a second or third or sometimes even fourth or fifth chance to cross that finish line and get their high school diploma. Transformative for their own lives as well as their families' lives and for the community in which they live. We've had many challenges over our 11 years, and the first was when Portage Adult Edge closed, and we had 4 months to figure out how to keep those services and finding a way to form a nonprofit and continue services and get the comprehensive status with different agencies and get our facility, but we did all that. And then 4 years later, when Portage Schools wanted the Garrison School building back, we had to figure out how a little nonprofit can find millions of dollars to find a new facility, but we did that. And so over the years, we have been very adept at meeting those challenges. And one of the challenges has been to really prepare our students for success beyond just crossing that finish line and moving on to what is needed to have post-secondary credentials and training. This became even more clear after the pandemic, when the disparities between our students who did not have a diploma and those students that were college-bound by nature of their families, by nature of their schools, that really widened the disparity and the gap of that. And so the projects that we are proposing really is aimed at closing those gaps. Jerry?
So I'll be, for those of you playing along at home, on the one on the economic impact of the pandemic. So NEO suffered some significant impact to the tune of $1 million. That's been in our proposal that Rebecca has presented to you a couple of times, that you've heard that. But again, the other thing is understanding that the pandemic did increase NEO's costs on top of just what we didn't bring in. And the areas that NEO saw an increase in their cost was additional employee compensation because of being around the students as they were filtering in and out, additional COVID days. We also had the delivery of remote and hybrid instruction and additional professional development to support our teachers. We also had to purchase new technology to ensure fluid, consistent, and equitable access to the learning during this remote and hybrid time. We also had to replace one of our HVAC systems so that we had proper ventilation as we brought students back into our building for the in-person instruction. As everybody did, we had the purchase of the personal protective equipment to try to mitigate. We were fortunate. We had very few staff members that came down with COVID, and we had very few students. We did not see a huge impact with that because of the personal protection equipment. We also increased our student support. We brought in a full-time social worker and an on-site counselor to work not only with the students but also with the families to navigate through all of these changes, emotional, social, mental issues that they had to deal with because of the pandemic. And then we also increased our academic support. We increased our before and after school tutoring. We increased our Friday tutoring because our school runs Monday through Thursday. We had more staff time where students could get access to their teachers on Fridays for tutoring. We also extended our online learning support, and we have increased our summer and our evening online options for our students.
Next slide. I'm sorry you can't see it. It was really a beautiful presentation. Financial insecurity. We were very fortunate that we did receive some PPP funding and COVID-related funding to offset the loss of revenue, offset the cost of the $1 million revenue that we lost. We received 2 PPP loans that were forgiven, and we also received some of the federal money that was allocated to schools to help navigate and to compensate for the additional increased revenue or expenses that we had. Those funds were used as intended, and we kept all 45 of our employees fully employed during that time. We, over the last 2 years, have continued to serve our students, both in person and consistently hybrid last year and remote just for the 3 months in March through June of 2020. We also we did this while we followed all CDC guidelines for safety. Our students and families were luckily very compliant, as was our staff, and we did so and had no internal spread and continued to do the services. We also took our own actions, not just depended on the COVID money, but we took our own actions to mitigate the harm that was caused by the pandemic, the loss of revenue. We refinanced our $3.5 million mortgage to a savings of about $75,000 a year. We joined forces with a solar partner to bring a 1-acre solar field to our facility at no cost to us. Actually, it was $1 cost, but that saves us about $20,000 a year, not to mention, improving lessening our carbon footprint. We also recruited a really active force of volunteers and trained them to do remote and socially appropriate support for our students, of volunteers and community partners. And we really refurbished our marketing strategy, so we couldn't do in-person presentations or tours anymore, so we did online presentations and virtual tours. And all those efforts paid off. In the last 2 years, we have a very high employee retention rate, which is a godsend in this day and age, especially among schools. We have increased our graduation rate, almost doubled it. So we really have those extra services have paid off. We are just now starting to increase our student enrollment too. So again, this is a good sign for recovery. Most importantly, we move forward with our plans that were started before the COVID to really say what's next to make sure our students have the equitable access to post-secondary opportunities, college and career ready. We had started all this work, and the only thing that stopped us was the pandemic and then the funding. And so that is the intent behind this proposal, is to move forward with that. Our proposal in terms of, we're on the next slide where it says response to economic harm. While our proposal does have two projects in it, they will really form a unified response to the pandemic, and they both will help fill the jobs that are needed in this community for qualified workers in critical areas such as the trades, healthcare, education, green jobs, not to mention other things. It will fill the gaps that are being experienced by other providers to make sure that there's equitable access to training, and that will meet the region's vital and affordable training opportunities for other expanded students in our community. It will not only do that, but it will also empower our students with the credentials and the skills they need to compete effectively in this society. And this is more important than ever because now the job market is changing. We're also seeing that this program will support the skilling up and the retraining of people who have lost their jobs or need to find different kinds of work due to the pandemic. And finally, it will expand the number of preschool spots that are so desperately needed by parents who are working and by our students who have had to stop their education because of child care. Okay? We have two proposals. So the next slide is the Camelot Nature Academy. That was the name given to it by our partner. And that is all that you've had more than you need about the quotes and the design plans for that proposal in the submission that I gave you on the portal. But that is basically, we are really looking to develop 3,000 square feet of our 70,000 square foot facility, the former Camelot Bowling Alley. This is an area that has not been developed. We have used it, but it needs to be developed to make sure it's compliant with the requirements for running a preschool in terms of electrical, in terms of bathrooms and things like that. The program is designed on a national model, a very unique model of increasing education to bring in nature into the curriculum. So they will not be only using our front yard, like the area for a playground, but we also sit on 30 acres of land. So the children will have access to the back 20, as we call it, for nature studies. These spots, these child care spots, will be open to the community. They will be open to our students who are parents. They will also be given, the provider that we are working with is also designating a sliding fee scale, in particular to help teachers as a way of retaining teachers in the profession who are now tempted to leave because they can't afford childcare. I've explained how that this program will serve our students in terms of career pathways, in terms of internships, and so it's going to yield a great return on our investment. The total cost of this project is $267,057. It's a little bit more. We dug into the budget more. That includes all of the renovation costs. It includes furnishing. It includes the outside play area, and it includes some contracted services for the development of our early childhood pathway for our high school students. In return, it's going to do all of the things we've mentioned. It's going to add these spots for families to work and to go back to school. It's going to actually increase our revenue through increased rental income, and it's also going to train a whole new generation of people for filling early childhood spots in this area. Okay. The next proposal, the next project, how much? Oh, geez, okay. The next one is our training academy. So again, I know Commissioner Biggs has been there. In our facility, we have a 10,000 square foot empty space that we nicknamed the Cavern. It looks like a big warehouse. And we have design build plans that have been generated over the past 2 years to bring increased training opportunities in collaboration with regional partners, including Ivy Tech, Porter County Career and Technical Center. We're working with Valparaiso University, Workforce Development, Work One. We have trainings established. We have plans for that. We're going to deliver this into 2 phases. The first phase will be to get the infrastructure in place. And then once we get that, we will be working with these same partners to really fine-tune, to say what are the gaps that need to be filled, what's the best delivery model, working with other school corporations to do that. We have started a construction training program. We've done Microsoft Office. We've done We've worked with the state to do welding and commercial driver's license. We've done a lot of that over the last few years in partnership with these entities, and we will continue to build on those partnerships. Again, this will be serving our students, both our high school students and our adult education students, but will also be open to the community members who need retraining. Okay? Timeline, we're on the next slide that says timeline. Okay? I can skip through that because it's pretty self-explanatory and I don't want to run out of time. But it's very well thought out in terms of our delivery of services. We are ready to go with our contractor. The design build plans have been submitted to the state for the childcare. As soon as we get the word that we can go on this, we will move forward with those plans. And again, we've already started the work with our provider and partners to move forward. On the revised budget, I've changed the proposal from your original ask. We originally asked $500, and then I was told to ask for the whole thing, so I did, and now I'm backing up again. I am doing that because of a few reasons. I know there's a great deal of competition, but I also wanted to align it with a few things. Number one, I wanted to this be more proportional with the percentage of students that we serve in Porter County. So my ask is proportional not only with our revenue loss, but with the number of students that are, out of our 750 students that are Porter County residents, which is about 57%. And so that is what the ask is for. We have matching funds, so I'm moving fast and furious to the next slide that looks like this. We have proposed, we have submitted ARPA proposals to Valparaiso. We did not get that, but we have advanced with the Portage ARPA funds. We have asked for $275,000. I don't know what we will get. That's still in the works, but it's been suggested we will get between $100,000 and $200,000. We also have identified other grants that we will go after and that are also that we have received, but the funding is yet to come in, including employee retention tax credit and a charter innovation, a facility grant from the state of Indiana State. Together, those will equal the 43% that will complement the 57% that we were asking from this. Okay, moving forward.
We're hoping that this proposal will mitigate the financial hardship for really three entities. Obviously, NEO being one of them with an increased enrollment, new partnerships, and additional rent revenue from the spaces that we're creating. But more also for our students through their access to the educational and job training that we'll have and the increased earning potential for the students. And last, the communities that we serve, because now we're improving the employability of these students, which will then turn around and be advantageous to the communities that we serve.
And I am running out of time, but if you were to ask, I can tell you about all of our different collaborations with different entities in the region. And Jerry alluded to our last slide about sustainability. We are really moving in that direction. The COVID, the loss of revenue in terms of our student per pupil funding that I outlined in my original proposal, the lack of rentals that we received, all of those we're rebounding on those. So this is a one-time ask to respond to the loss of revenue, to move forward with plans that really will have a direct impact on our students' lives and our ability to move forward in a sustainable way. It will also, I think that's the basic thing, it's going to be long-lasting. These services have been around for the 49 years under Portage Adult Ed and the 11 years under us, and there's still a need with 1 in every 7 to 10 adults in Porter County not having a high school diploma, and the need for more equitable access to advanced training. So we know that this is a needed services for the businesses and the communities and the individuals who face many barriers. And so in closing, we close.
Go ahead. Well,
Closing statement. Yeah, a nice closing statement.
So like our students, we're resilient, tenacious, innovative, and committed to our mission and our goal. NEO is poised to increase the potential for opportunities for residents throughout Northwest Indiana, but more importantly in Porter County. And the intent of the ARPA money was to give a boost to entities that their progress or their growth was stalled because of the pandemic. So we hope that you consider the return on investment, the growth, or the impact for the residents of Porter County, and the sustainability of the projects for all the projects that you give money to. And we think that NEO allows the committee to address many of those in the projects that we've presented to you. And we thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's start off, first I want to, because I think it's important that the other board members understand this as well, is that, honestly, of all the applications that we received, that my office received, the Board of Commissioners, you came early, and you had, you provided us with the right kind of information. You made it crystal clear what you're doing over there. And I don't know if the board caught it in the presentation, is that Portage School District does not provide adult education. That's what you all do now.
Mm-hmm.
You took it over.
Yes.
So if you didn't exist, it wouldn't exist. Which, you know, as a native resident, I can't tell you how much I appreciate that, because I know what it means. It's much like what the Boys and Girls Club does. You're filling, it's not a niche. I mean, you're filling a hole. And I can't imagine what it would be like if you weren't out there. And I was very impressed with, the visit, how well organized you all were, how clean the facility was, how everybody seemed to be, unless they were told to, that this guy's coming in, so everybody looked busy.
No.
They looked busy.
Always scurry.
But I wanted to tell you, I very much appreciate, as a county commissioner, of receiving that information. You've made my decision very easy.
Thank you.
I think you're undoubtedly one of the stronger applications.
Thank you.
Far and away, one of the more stronger applications. So, with that, I appreciate it. A couple of questions. It may sound silly, but I got to ask it. If you were offered less, would you?
See, I thought I thwarted that by telling you. I already brought it down a little. Yes. It will just limit in terms of, the budget does include some personnel costs. It does include, the detailed budget was on the online submission, and it does include some equipment and materials, and we will actively look at donations from different entities, some different businesses, sponsors. We will have to look at more of an allocation of our own resources, which will not be great because it will take us further away from having to constantly,
But that's what we need to know,
Sure.
though.
I would like to say
know,
that this is a bottom line number for me. But
you-
will I take more? Yes. Or less, I will take.
And you're still able to meet those deadlines?
Yes.
Yes.
The
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And the upside, is part of that is because of the planning that NEO did prior. This was something that was in the works coming forward before the pandemic hit, that it really stalled it. And so now we're ready to jumpstart this moving forward. So things are lined up and ready to go as soon as we have the availability.
Just for clarification, so your application through the portal came in asking for $1.5 million. So what is your ask now? Did you?
Oh, I'm sorry, because it is on the back page, on your back page, you do have a revised budget, and it is, our new ask is decreased. We are now asking $1,106,794, and that represents 57% of the total budget. And it is broken down, and I can, tell you what its personnel costs. And again, part of the personnel cost was to help us with this rebuilding year. Because we know that our funding is dependent on enrollment, and we know that we're growing, but we need that boost to get us through this first year of providing professional contracted training services. And so that was built into the budget. We will work very closely with the Department of Workforce Development, and we're going to be reaching out to the federal government for grants, because I know that this is very aligned with some of the priorities, and so we will constantly act. And that's why I've committed to raising the other 43% from other sources. And we'll be working with Lake County, with different entities in Lake County, because we do serve, that 43% does come from Lake County.
But the money, if we were to award you money, those monies would be spent here.
The facility is a Portage facility.
Yes.
So it's a Portage resource. a Porter County resource. And so, yes, and the majority of our students do come there, and so it will be more likely to be accessed by Portage residents, by Porter County residents. Will there be others? Yes. And that's part of being neighbors, and that's part of this regional mindset. But
Did you request, did you apply for any ARP funds for the city of Portage?
yes, and that's why I said we've been advanced. We have been unofficially awarded, but it's still kind of a convoluted process where they are not committing till, but we're part of that. I think there were 3 groups that were included in the allocation under the nonprofit, and they had said, they had kind of hinted at $100,000 to $200,000. We were turned down by the Valparaiso City Council money for the ARPA. We weren't given any word, Brian.
Well, yeah, the city of Valparaiso is like the rest of the municipalities, including ourselves. I mean, there's only so much to
Sure.
go around.
Yep.
There's so many requests. That,
Yep.
I mean, I'm sure that city officials would agree that if they had it, they would certainly give
Sure.
it. So,
So what is the debt on your real estate now? You said something about
The
refinancing.
original loan we received a loan from the state and from First Source, and that was the total of about $4.5 million, and we are down to about, I think, $3 million. And so,
Refinancing?
well, no, just
Or
through
just
consistent payment over the last 6 years. I mean, and it's a huge I mean, it's like $450,000 a year in debt for a little nonprofit.
Yeah.
But our board, even though their head said, no, 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 don't do it, their heart said, we have to do this. And again, a 70,000 square foot building, we did not need that space, and we only renovated half of it, but it is an opportunity to really grow and to grow with the demands of the region and the county.
Yeah, I understand that's a good opportunity. I was just a little concerned with the amount of debt. And what are you perceiving as your revenue that's going to come in that you're going to be able to meet your...
Well, other than the pandemic, we were clean audits every year. We were on track and we met our charter authorizers, financial metrics. Everything was going in terms of our student enrollment was growing, our aggressive use of grants, getting grants very competitively, and so we have a threshold of our break-even number, and we're already exceeding that. So I know that growing-wise we'll be okay. We have not defaulted on any loans, and as the $1.1 million that we have with the state of Indiana through the Department of Education's grant, that was a 10-year grant, so we're at year 6, so we only have a few more years of that. And so with the increased enrollment that comes increased revenue and the increased partnerships, and I do believe these 2 projects both will open themselves up to sponsorships from businesses or contributions. I think it will elevate our status and our value to the region. I really do. We've kind of been the best kept secret in a way, it's like because we're just too busy, like Commissioner Biggs says, we're just running around, and we don't have a development person, we don't have that marketing person. It kind of...
And I think Rebecca alluded to it a little bit. A lot of our funding comes from students, but to get the students, we need the programs. To get the programs, we need the facility. To get the facility, we need the students. I mean, that's kind of how our revenue works right now. So an opportunity like this allows us to jumpstart and have start the build on the facility so we can grow that student base. And like I said, yes, that does help NEO as an organization with revenue, but more importantly is the end product of what we have is we're helping the residents and the communities. And so that's what we're hoping that this jump start is going to be for NEO, because that's a vicious circle, and it's kind of the chicken and the egg thing of how do you get them there. We can tell students come, because someday we're going to have this, but it's the same way, it's the same reason schools go out and get bonds, is so they can build the facilities right now so that the people who are paying it off can benefit from it. If you tell everybody, give us money and 20 years down the road we'll build a new football stadium, nobody's going to give you the money.
And as I referenced in my online submission, like NEO runs a public school, so New Vistas is a free public high school. Okay, we have to follow all the same compliance requirements for graduation that any other public school does. Unfortunately, because it's a charter public school, we do not get any local tax dollars. And for most school corporations, those local tax dollars represent about a third of their operating budget. So all of the debt that we've incurred rests on our shoulders. And we have not received any local municipal support from the county or from the cities, except for when we were first formed and the Porter County Commissioners gave a grant to continue the adult education, and we got $50,000. So they do have that place, and so we could maybe reintroduce that as getting it back on the budget. But, you know, it is important because it is a county-wide service that is vital to changing lives.
I remember years ago when the Portage schools discontinued this, and I was really concerned about it. I'm glad to see that you took this on.
Well, I was the assistant director, and we had 4 months, we were notified via email that there was going to be a board meeting in February of 2011, and they were going to close the program down 4 months later. So in 4 months' time, I formed a nonprofit. I mean, it was just amazing. A gentleman, I think you're all too young, Ken Woodruff, who I never met, but he's been my guardian angel all along because he started the Portage Adult Education Program, and when everybody said, this can't be done, we've done it. And I think he's been looking after this program. So
who else offers the training for GEDs at all in Portage?
So when Portage Adult Education closed, the Center of Workforce Innovation here in Valpo, they assumed the helm of some of the outlying adult education programs. Portage Schools kept the Portage Center, the Portage Adult High School, and the Portage GED Testing Center for 1 year.
Okay.
And then when that was slated to close, that's when I formed NEO. We kept it going. And so Center of Workforce Innovations has adult education programs in some of the communities. NEO is going to be opening a program at the Porter County Jail. We have partnerships with the Valparaiso School Alternative High School program. We help serve the students at the Porter County Jail. We have a site here in Valparaiso and then at the Portage facility. And so we serve about 400 Porter County residents a year and help probably about 150 Porter County students graduate every year, not to mention the citizens and trainings.
Well, I'm a product of Portage Education, Adult Ed. I received my GED back in 1997. It allowed me to get back to Purdue, get me to Drexel. I mean, it's a great stepping stone, and I can't imagine not even having that for so many people where, you know, maybe the traditional 8-hour day doesn't work for everybody. And it really doesn't.
And if you have an opportunity to come in and see the facility that NEO created. Because it's not a facility. That's what impressed me being here since July, that I walked in and went, what? You know, it's a beautiful facility that the students are proud of.
Well, and that's what's nice is offering those extra courses so that way they can do the online application, understand what all that stuff is. You have to know Microsoft. You have to know those things for schools. So, no, it's
serving as a community hub too. I mean, we have mobile food markets. We have different community events. We have community groups that use our sportsplex, like roller hockey women, roller derby women, and roller hockey guys. We need to stop that way. I can talk forever. You know that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Porter County Project Kids.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I have an extra.
Okay. Well, hello, and thank you for seeing me tonight. I appreciate all the millions of hours it seems like you have put in on this ARPA. I'd like to start with making 2 clarifications that I think are necessary. One is what I'm talking about tonight has absolutely nothing to do with what I talked about last week with you, other than it's with kids, but this is not special needs kids. This is our regular population. Okay? And then the other thing, I felt like there was some question about how this nonprofit fit in the allocation of funds because we are different. We can't show, this loss of funds that we had over the progress of the COVID pandemic, but we exist solely to address issues that came up during the pandemic. And we actually fit into two categories. We fit into the nonprofit category because we are a nonprofit. But when you look at the final rule, and I was talking to Ms. Urbanik about this a little bit before we met, there's another category, too, that calls assistance to households. And I think we maybe fit into that group a little more. It's a little more clear to see how we are an enumerated group in that group. And that group doesn't have a committee. I guess it falls in the little other thing. And as Commissioner Briggs mentioned, the next step, everything kind of goes into a pot together. So it doesn't really matter as long as it is something that's appropriate. So I was going to bring you all these quotes from the final rule, but thank goodness Ms. Urbanik made this wonderful shortcut to that. And so this addresses the other category that we fit into, the assistance to households. And if you flip it over and you go to the first dot on the second page, addressing the impacts of lost instructional time. Services to any K-12 student who lost access in-person instruction for a significant period of time, including high-quality tutoring and other extended learning opportunities. Differentiated instructions, activities to meet the comprehensive need of students. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about how we do it, but that's where we fit. That's what we're enumerated. Okay. So we, as I said in our submission in the portal, we have kind of two different missions. And I want to talk a little bit about why I formed this group. Everyone's heard about how our kids were impacted by COVID, just as our adults, by the isolation, the lack of interaction, things like that. But I started, as someone that's very interested and committed to helping with child development in our community, I started witnessing some things that really bothered me. Groups with opposing political views, yelling at each other on the streets, the level of anger and hostility and anxiety and depression that they were being raised in. Parents trying to, juggle educating during the at-home period. And if you think about it, there's some kids, and we've talked to several kindergarten teachers now, that never have seen anything else. They were just home. So, somebody that was maybe 2 when COVID started, and then 3 and 4 and 5 and 6, those kids have never attended school in a normal way. They don't really know how to sit in a seat. They don't really know how to attend. It's a very difficult thing. So they're having social, emotional, physical, all kinds of consequences that it's easy to overlook, maybe, and just feel like, well, they're back to school, everything's all good. But this group of kids has been changed by COVID, and they need assistance. So my first thing was thinking, wow, they're seeing all these crazy, hostile people, or even just their parents getting frustrated. Maybe they need some better role models. Maybe they need some adults around them that are calm, that are interested in them, that show that they're interacting with people in a polite way, in a neighborly way. I mean, I think that's why we all live in Porter County, is we love being neighbors. We love the feeling of that interaction, of talking over the fence, and we've kind of lost a lot of that. There's a suspicion and a hostility for a lot of people, like, what are you about? Do you agree with me? And it's sad, and so I kind of am interested in doing things that I can to heal that and bring adults together in an apolitical setting to do projects to help kids. So those are my two missions. One, to help out our kiddos, see what we can do to normalize and improve their lives. And then the second is to bring adults together, maybe have them meet some new people, maybe encourage them to step out and put some of that hostility behind them, do something fun with their kids. And it's working. So I put my little idea on a Facebook group. I made up a name with my kids. I thought, I have a lot of connections. Are you okay? Yeah. Okay. I have a lot of connections with adults and people interested in kids. I bet I could get a few people to help me out on some of these ideas. And my sons and I had formed a group between the three of us. I was trying to teach them the value of volunteering and being charitable, and we called it the Giving Three. So we had given, for one of our monthly projects, a sensory path to their old school memorial, and they loved it, and they went so crazy. And I think the schools were so delighted and almost didn't believe they were being approached by people that wanted to do something kind for them. And we said, wow, that went over really well. And my kids said, we need to do it to all the schools in Porter County. And I thought, well, you know, these average $1,500 a piece, there's no way I'm a single mother with twins in college with lots of medical, there's no way I could do that. But maybe some people will help. Let's see. Overnight, we got 125 people join. I was shocked. And not just people I didn't know, major stars of our community, let's call them, you know, in all different areas, civic leaders, pediatricians, mental health advocates, teachers, artists, chefs, moms, just the whole gamut. And I thought, wow, this group is going to be powerful. I better step up. This is going to be a little more than I thought it was going to be, but I'll be the leader they want, and we'll make this happen. So very quickly, it became apparent that to do everything we were capable of doing, we needed to become a nonprofit. And so I applied to be a nonprofit. In November, the beginning of November, end of October, we did receive our nonprofit status from the state. I then applied to the IRS, and we got back our 501(c) recognition. We did not file for taxes because we really had no funds at the end of the year. This is our first year. Amongst the people that stepped up, my officers are truly amazing, and they're sorry they can't be here today. My vice president is Dr. Elizabeth Campbell, and she's one of the leading pediatricians in Porter County. She's a co-owner and doctor at Associated Pediatricians. My treasurer is Stephanie Leonard, who is a branch manager of 2 of the TCU credit unions. So, what better treasurer could I have than that? And my secretary is Vanessa Moore, who is a very creative mom. She knows lots of nature stuff, and she's very involved in her community. So I have a great group. All right, so the next 2 handouts on here are 2 different articles which I will summarize for you. You can read more if you want. The first one is about the benefits of movement in the classroom, and this is from an occupational therapy organization. Oh boy. And really it's about the movement for all of us and how much the brain needs that and how we can learn better if we have a break. Our brain can't access it. You know, when you're bored and it's Charlie Brown teacher, la, 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 you're not taking anything in. You can't learn. But if you can get out and move for even just a few minutes on one of these sensory paths, you can go back more receptive to learning. So, and then the next handout I have here is about the crisis in mental health in children in our country. And this is a study based on a study done at Lurie's, and it shows that 70% of our parents have reported mental health issues in their children during the COVID Dr. Campbell, as well as other pediatricians I've talked to, have told me most of their kids coming in are for mental health issues. Then I'm also going to I talked to the juvenile probation officers, which have a fun announcement in a second, and they said the same thing, that most of what they're seeing in the courts are not crimes but mental health issues. So this is one way my group, I feel, although it's a little vague and immeasurable, I feel like it's addressing something super significant that I'm not sure is directly being addressed in a different way. This little figure shows one of our paths, and the figure 8, and what are the things that we benefit: coordination, attention, balance, cognition, visual skills. All right. And then I have 2 letters from, the first one's from a teacher in Portage at Central, and he really wanted a path. He didn't know that he would get one for free. He was begging to try to see how I could help him fund one. And he wrote me and he said he was excited to see one we installed at Washington Township, where his child's going to start kindergarten. And he says, I understand how it can benefit the physical, emotional, and mental health of children. It allows students to work off excess energy and helps to develop their gross motors. Okay, I kind of knew that, but he went on. And he said, I have seen firsthand how sensory paths such as these can be especially effective for students who experience frustration, anger, or other sensory overloads during their activity. Sending a child out to the hall to work out some of those emotions and energy can help him or her refocus when returning to the high school or to their classroom. The last letter I sent you, I got a surprise call on my phone, and it said Porter County Juvenile Department. And I thought, well, my one kid's in Oregon, and he's a pretty good kid, but who's in trouble? And I was surprised that an employee in the juvenile detention center had seen one of these sensory paths in a different detention center. And they have a very long hallway that goes from where the kids are being held, and they have to walk down this hallway on the way to court. And when they're walking down this hallway, they get agitated, they get nervous, they get frustrated, they get angry, and they're entering court in probably the worst possible state before a judge that they should be in. So she has contacted us to contract with her to, and I've now talked to 3 different occupational therapists about this, and I have one doing research on it, and she's actually meeting with them again on Thursday. And she's studying things like just painting it a different color, doing some maybe meditative things along the way to help them. They also have a classroom there for at-risk kids who cannot attend other schools because of behavioral issues. These kids are headed to juvie. That's their next step. So they have a classroom there, and they would like a sensory corner there. That's for younger kids. So that's for Porter County. The kids that probably need it more than anybody, we're now assisting them as well. So I tried to fit it in my 15 minutes.
Is that it?
Okay. So what questions do you have?
What's your son's name?
Declan.
Declan. He just got you his eye candy up there, I guess. Huh?
Yep. He's like, yep.
Does the board have any questions?
I did have a parent reach out to me.
Yeah.
Really excited about these sensory paths.
That's great.
And of course, what you talked about last week, but I'll stick to this one for today. But she's had a lot of benefits, and she's excited about that. One question I did have, are you trying to get this into every elementary school?
Well, they don't all want them.
Oh, okay.
And a few were on hold on because they're doing construction, but they,
Gotcha.
We purchased one and it's being held for them. But what's happened, of course, like the letter from Elliot at Central, which, by the way, we're installing on Monday. We started out installing them, and then we kind of had a pause, and we thought, well, maybe that's it. And then Dr. Campbell started sending follow-up letters. Well, with her name and pediatricians, The principals paid a little more attention, and they thought maybe I was junk mail or something. I'm not sure where I
How
went.
many school districts are you?
So we've either have installed or have plans for 15 different paths, and they include Couch, Washington Township, Valparaiso, Chesterton, Portage, and as I said, we had like an article in the paper that was in my initial thing. And after that, a lot, like, the more get out there, the more want them. So at this point, I think we have the 6 ready to install it. We have to prepare. Tomorrow, we have a meeting at the library to get some ready. And I know there'll be more, let alone, this is our first project. So, you know, what's going to be our project 2? What's going to be our project 3? We'd like to be things like volunteers, you know, because we're interested in kids. So if Hilltop House needed their fence painted for their garden, they could call on us and we would show up, you know, with our kids. And the kids that have helped us really enjoy volunteering. At first we dragged them, and now they're happy to go. It's kind of a fun time with their moms. And Dr. Campbell's daughter we call Froggy because she's really good at peeling off the frogs without taking a leg off, you know. And
So in regards to COVID then, are you saying mainly, like, are these projects?
They are because of
COVID.
They're because of COVID. You know, these children have been impacted so terribly.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I think they really need something done for them. They need to see adults acting in a reasonable fashion because they've seen so much craziness and anxiety. So I'd like to put something on the other side of that balance, like to show the kind of neighbors we are, to show what we're about to them.
Well, thank you. Any other questions from the board?
I have one.
Yep.
Did you say, you said that you haven't really filed or paid for any taxes yet because it's your first year.
Correct.
When did you become a group?
At the end of last year. So, also, we have no payroll. We're all volunteers. So far, we brought in, we had a wonderful donor from a family foundation. The mom was a member of our group, and they gave us an $8,000 donation. I've decided not to redo my kitchen or bathroom for quite a while, and I donated personally $5,000. You know, we've had a few members with smaller donations. So the $15,000 is a matching donation to help pay for some of the rest of these projects that I really don't want to turn someone down after they've seen it at another school when they want it. So it would be most helpful to get some assistance with that.
I'll say it out. I'll say it now. Because I know one of the requirements was, business has to be formed prior to COVID. So formed because of COVID is something I think we'd have to take another look at.
I think, as I said, if in the other groups, in the household groups, and Vicki, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think we do meet the requirement, and it doesn't all say, some of it is just last year, it will meet the requirements. I've seen that in the final rule. So I think maybe not under the specific guidance you were given for nonprofits, but under the assistance to households, we do meet the requirements. And I don't know if I'm allowed to submit more, but I had a whole stack of clippings of the final rule that showed how we do, in fact, meet it, even if we did not exist before COVID. And it's clearer under the assistance to households than it is under the specific guidance you've been given for the nonprofits.
I think I raised that same question at a previous meeting.
And I knew that was a doubt you
Vicki
had.
said that,
Yeah.
having the entity having to be in existence prior to the pandemic was a requirement for the tourism industry.
Correct.
But not
specifically related to that.
Yeah.
And
So
con-
that would
yeah.
be,
And conceivably, a group could make the argument that they suffered economic harm because we're still in the pandemic, which I
Right.
wasn't sure if this group would make that argument. So under the assistance to household section that Ms.
Wold.
is referring to, it's not the assistance to nonprofits that you're dealing with, but there is that other category called assistance to households. And it directly relates to, a variety of services, but in this particular one, it would be the lost instructional time, early childhood, healthy environments, and that.
And that's on the first handout I gave you on the second page on that first bullet.
Correct.
Okay?
You did a wonderful job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I know you guys have some hard decisions to
Well, thank you. Shirley Hines Land Trust. You pull a short straw, you're the only guy here, huh?
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's pretty cool. Looked at nature preserves and Shirley Hines. Start when you're ready.
All right. Well, thank you, Commissioner and council members. We greatly appreciate this opportunity and all the work you're putting into this process. So just to give you some quick background, Shirley Hines Land Trust has been preserving and restoring natural lands and waters in northwestern Indiana since 1981. We also have another component of our mission that's become more and more prevalent and important, and that's engaging people in conservation and nature. For those of you that aren't aware, we are actually headquartered here in Porter County, just between Valparaiso and Chesterton at Meadowbrook Nature Preserve. Of the 2,700 acres we've permanently protected in a 6-county geography, over 1,000 of those acres are here in Porter County. We have 6 state-dedicated nature preserves. Almost all of our properties, to the extent possible, unless they're too wet, let's say, we have been working really hard to make them publicly accessible. I think it is worth noting that of the 1,300 plus land trusts in the United States, in 2018 we were recognized by the Alliance of Land Trusts in the country and received one of 20 National Excellence Awards in the United States. So I think that's a testament to our fiscal responsibility, our ethics, and also our innovation as a land trust organization. Next slide. We're here to talk about Meadowbrook Nature Preserve. It's really been one of the most transformative decisions and undertakings of the organization. It started in 2013 with the acquisition of retired Girl Scout camp. Today, it is 224 acres in size. We've reforested some adjoining agricultural lands, planting over 30,000 trees. We have over 4 miles of trails now on the property. Most recently, and what's exciting and also ties into this project, is that we are in the early stages relative to our organization's history in developing an agriculture and water program. The site provides a tremendous amount of recreation opportunities. We've done a variety of programs over the years for youth and adults. I think one of the most exciting programs we delivered is right before COVID, we had over 200 students from Thomas Jefferson out removing the tree tubes from the trees that were planted in the ag land area. So we've also done a variety of projects like a garden planting with the Valparaiso Rotary Club, and VU students have been out there over the years monitoring the water in the streams. Next slide. So in 2019, before COVID, we went through a process of developing a master plan. We received public input from many of our partners and determined that we needed to improve amenities at Meadowbrook to meet the demand. So what you're seeing before you is some capital improvements that are currently underway. We underwent a 2-year campaign to raise the funds to install a new parking area that's accessible, a plaza, a pavilion and restroom facility, and also an accessible trail. If you drive by Meadowbrook today, those activities are currently underway, and the site is under construction. Next slide. There are 2 components or parts to our funding request that you have before you, and the first part is to construct an amphitheater. So this would be having a pathway to get back to the amphitheater that is further back on the nature preserve. It would include a stage with a ramp, so the stage is accessible, a restroom facility, and an open space for people to congregate. You can see the rendition here. We just have a couple other slides. The next slide is a zoomed-in version of the stage and then the restroom facility, and then the next slide is an aerial rendition, and all of these were completed by Shive Hattery. Our goal with the next slide is to really deliver on the increased visitation that we've seen, tremendous increase with visitation during the pandemic. A lot of these outdoor spaces, not just at Shirley Hines Land Trust Nature Preserves, but state parks, national parks, county parks, have seen a significant increase for people to get outdoors. The amphitheater would create free space for people of all ages and program opportunities that would include advancing. We have a new Nature and the Arts initiative where we're connecting people from the art community to the outdoors. There would be a variety of other opportunities and in some ways more non-traditional ways and partners that we could convene and make the site available to, including entities like the Boys and Girls Club. So there are, as I think all of you know, a lot of health and wellness benefits by having people outside, and then the obvious one that we discovered with COVID is, being outdoors during a pandemic is a safe space to be. Next slide. The other component, or Part B, of our project is a addition to Meadowbrook. It would bring the nature preserve up to 300 acres in size. This is really a part of a much larger conservation vision between Valparaiso and Chesterton. You can see Sunset Hill County Park, that's kind of in the middle, and then on the other side of 49, you have Moraine Nature Preserve. So making what we have left in Porter County of this valuable natural and forested resource connected to the extent possible, whether that be with trails or with land protection. So we are very excited and I think making very good progress, as you can see here on this aerial map with our partners. Next slide. So this is a zoomed-in version. The star is approximately where the amphitheater is located, and then you can see the property to the north. There's about 23 acres of wetlands and forested area. The other approximately 50 acres is farmland, and I think the thing that's different and unique with this property is we will be leaving it in agriculture, so we want to partner with we are actually currently partnering with the ag community, farmers, the Porter County Soil and Water Conservation District. We believe this is a great opportunity to demonstrate best management practices on the preserve and collaborate with the rural part of our geography here in Porter County. Next slide. So I mentioned the 300 acres. We'll be preserving a variety of different types of habitats. There is an ag land preservation component, and then also water quality improvements. We have several unnamed tributaries of Salt Creek that flow through this property, and the opportunities to preserve land in this area are becoming limited, and there's nothing wrong with that, but this area is really significant ecologically, and I think this land acquisition is a good balance, considering the 80 acres immediately to the east of Meadowbrook is going to be developed, and 113 acres to the southwest is in the process of being developed. And as you look at some of the improvements being made on Highway 6, this is a good way to bring kind of nature up to Highway 6 with some of those future development opportunities. Next slide. So on our budget, we did make some adjustments. We have been working rigorously since we presented our proposal, and seeing this as a great opportunity to create an added amenity at Meadowbrook. And so we are prepared to do a challenge fundraiser and believe that we can come up with approximately $250,000. And part of this is also in attending the past meetings, the demonstration for match, and seeking out other resources, and also keeping in mind our fundraising efforts with other capital projects. So that reduces the amphitheater request by $250,000, and then for the land acquisition component, we already came in with 1/2 of the funding secured for that acquisition. We have 2 years to essentially come up with the remainder. We believe that there's a good opportunity to apply for, if any of you have seen the environmental license plate funds, that is through the President Benjamin Harrison Conservation Trust program within DNR, and we believe that would be a great opportunity to at least secure funds for the wetland portion of the property. And so you can see the update on the screen there. It adjusts our total request by $350,000. Next slide. So on the sustainability front, I believe Shirley Hines Land Trust has a great track record. We've been successful in all of our acquisition and capital projects. Some people don't realize we do have 9 full-time staff, so we do have a lot of capacity as an organization. I think one of the things that makes us unique is that we do not rely and are not dependent on tax dollars. We have lots and lots of partners at the county level, within the corporate community, and a slew and a lot of nonprofits that would benefit from this project. On the timing side, based on our experience with capital improvements and working with the county to date, we're very confident that we could have the amphitheater component completed by the summer of 2023. And then on the land acquisition, we have a 2-year contract on the property, and if these funds were made available, we would be able to execute that contract before the end of 2022. And then just other support, we're approximately getting very close to $3 million in total acquisition, restoration, and capital funds for Meadowbrook. Next slide. Economic response and impact. We did receive 2 PPP loans as an organization. We worked remotely. We were very fortunate. Our fundraising efforts did turn out well, so we were not financially impacted, or it did not. We were not required to lay off or let go of staff, and those PPP loans did help significantly. And then the next slide. And this is just a slide to paint a little bit of a picture. I'm sure a lot of you have read about the benefits of outdoor spaces. These are just two examples, a really good article by Penn State on the significant increase of outdoor spaces and the number of adults now using outdoor space, the 20% increase, and really how I think all of us realize when we're outdoors we feel better. And this is a great report by DNR. They actually have a trail counter in Porter County and 15 others throughout the state, and these are their results for and changes from 2019 to 2020 in terms of natural surface users over the course of COVID. So the demonstrated need is obvious, and these are a couple of examples to demonstrate that. And then the next slide. Just in closing, we think this is kind of a unique but important environmental project and investment in our natural resources and outdoor amenities in the county. This is something that will be available for residents in perpetuity. It's what we're all about as an organization, and are highly confident that we will be able to deliver on what we're setting out to do here, and it's a good project. We hope that you will consider supporting it, and really do, again, thank you for your time and appreciate the opportunity to be before you.
Thank you. Meadowbrook, does the public have access to that right now?
Yes, it is open to the public.
Okay. And you have trails all through there?
Yes, 4 miles of trails.
Do you charge an entrance fee?
No, we do not charge a fee for anyone to access any of our preserves in
You allow
6
animals?
counties. We do offer pets on a leash, and actually we have partnered with Lakeshore Paws in the past. They did an event outdoors, and that would be one of the entities and opportunities, a good use for the amphitheater space.
I think you had touched on it. This is the old
Girl Scout camp.
Girl Scout camp.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
That had been there forever. It had been
Mhm.
there a long time.
Yeah, and when we acquired it, it was, it hadn't been used in several years, so it was in need of some improvements, and I think it was an ideal opportunity for us to come in and make good use of those resources that were already there.
And the other properties I see through here, at least the ones in Porter County, the public has access to as well?
Yes, yeah. The two in particular are John Merle Coulter Nature Preserve and Portage on Lake Porter County Line Road, and then our other kind of big and even larger initiative is the East Branch of the Little Calumet River Corridor that we're protecting, where we have kayak launches, and you can kayak into the Indian Dunes National Park, and a lot of land being protected out by the Heron Rookery in Pine Township.
Chris, I'm going to say that just speaking for myself, I think that open space and preserving our agricultural landscape of Porter County, planned growth is good, but is really one thing that makes Porter County so attractive and vibrant. I think that you've hit, this targets a wide range of individuals, as far as meeting, I think, the home rule, and I think what you're doing is really, a good thing, and it's really a need. I think to maintain a good balance in our county with the open space, so I appreciate what you're doing here.
No, thank you, and I think that not to overemphasize the partnership with the ag community at Meadowbrook, but to be able to have a place in the county where people can come together and be able to see. We already have a farmer that's currently farming the property. We've been in communication with him. He's an innovative farmer that understands best management practices, and for us to be able to bring other farmers to the table with the conservation community, I think is another way that we're being innovative as an organization. It's not either or, it's both together collectively, and we've learned over the years in fulfilling our mission that we can't be doing it in a silo, and to be able to replicate what could be done at Meadowbrook, I think could reverberate into the rest of the county and even more broadly in northwestern Indiana, and particularly the Kankakee watershed. So that's something we are hyper-focused on as an organization, and I think we'll be successful.
Very good.
Very nice presentation. I think you do really good work. And I just want to mention that I think besides being a nonprofit, you would also fit into the tourism industry because you have a lot of visitors coming to your location. In which case, I think I would ask you exactly what your harm is, but if you fit into the tourism category, then I think the harm is presumed, correct? Vicki?
Yes, we still have to explain the economic harm, and that can be explained in a number of ways, such as, well, like what Mr. Cross said, the increased demands on the natural spaces. But you might, it's interesting that you pointed out, way back when we first started, seems like a year ago, right? The very first listing that the groups had, I tried to put a category, and I had for this one, either nonprofit or impacted industry / tourism.
Yeah.
And there were a few that fit into different modes, just like the other one might now fit more into the assistance to the households mold than the nonprofit. So, we could adjust that.
And thank you for bringing up ecotourism. It's in my notes, but I did not specifically state that. But ecotourism is such an important aspect of this, so thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you published this is, says it all. I mean, it's a guidebook to your properties. So, which I had, as a commissioner, and I'm kind of ashamed because it's in my district, had no idea that's what you're doing up there.
Yeah, we're making significant
Meadowbrook
progress. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
The thing with the farming is really great.
Yeah, and there's a map at the very beginning that shows where our properties are, that I think is really a nice tutorial, so.
Well, and it's also a way to generate some revenue for your property, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think that at the end of the day, our model is to, we're not a membership organization, and this is coming from the board of directors, we maintain, and I think we'll always maintain that these properties are open, accessible to anyone for free, and yes, we need donations to exist, and we're fortunate that we have a solid group of supporters at the corporate and individual and foundation levels, but we're doing it in the spirit and understand that certain people might not be able to, pay or have the means and should still have access to places. So, and I think that complements our partnership with the county as well in achieving that goal.
Well, I think, as Mike touched on, I think a lot of our residents feel this way in that, we don't, I think one of the more appreciative of aspects of Porter County is that it has a rural flavor to it. And that's something I think that most of our residents do not want to lose. We staying a little different in that respect. I mean, it's nice to be able to jump in your car and drive almost in any direction, 4 or 5 minutes, and you can take a walk in the woods. I think that's special. So and what you do here is, is really special. I mean, I've always felt that throughout the years, and the board should realize. I mean, all the years I've been in the commissioner's office, I've yet to get a phone call from anybody in your organization wanting something, which says a lot considering how big of a landowner you are. So, any other questions from the board?
I have a couple.
Sure, go ahead.
They should be quick. What is your relationship with the Marine Nature Preserve? Do you have one at all?
So actually, we did in 2018 conservation plan. We partnered. We actually had Porter County Parks, Indiana DNR, Division of Nature Preserves, and actually, it's funny you mentioned that. With our construction activities currently, we had to take some of our equipment for our stewardship operations because we have 4 full-time stewardship staff, seasonal technicians, even interns working for us this summer to manage and steward our properties.
Yeah.
They're actually letting us use some of their space to house our equipment. So a very good working relationship, even to the extent that when I first started at Shirley Hines back in 2005, we actually acquired some property as a part of the nature preserve and then transferred it to DNR, something that we've done in collaboration with several different agencies, and most people aren't even aware of that.
So there's a lot of times where you are definitely collaborating with other agencies, and did you just say you donated some property?
No, Shirley Hines Land Trust acquired it with the intent.
Okay.
Yeah, not me.
Okay. The only other question I have is, are you planning on trying to collaborate with like Purdue Research Farm or Purdue with any of the
I was
farming?
actually at my first Purdue days. It was really nice because it was one of the few things you could do during COVID. So I got a pork chop and met a lot of people, and it's a great group, and
Excellent.
So yes, I was at that event, and we have a lot of new partners with Purdue, by all means.
Thank you.
Pretty good event when you get a free pork chop.
Yeah, it's really good. We're going to be doing that at Meadowbrook, so, that's a major
Thank you very
attraction.
much.
Yeah.
That will conclude our interviews this evening. As we stated on our other committee, or other boards, is that our next meeting, we will actually score. There will not be the opportunity for public input at that point. That would just make it, as you can imagine, crazy. And then we will sign off, hand that information off to the steering committee, who then will do very light work with the information that we sent them, and then send it off to the commissioners and the county council. Nothing to it. But thank you all very much.
Is there any public comment?
Oh, public comment? Yes.
Timeframe for hearing committee?
Oh, gee. I don't know.
You want me to take that?
I know what they're all thinking, as soon as possible. Everybody on that committee will tell you, as soon as we possibly can. I think, what was the general consensus, Vicki, that when we wanted to be done with this and announce?
At the very beginning, the time frame was that the presentations, the recommendations would be given to the steering committee in July, but they sort of moved that up, I think, because they have 2 meetings scheduled for June. So they have one June 16th and another June 23rd. Now, will they call another one? Possibly. We don't know at this point, but that's what the steering committee is planning to meet.
My guess is, talking to Commissioner Blaney, is that they'll be pretty much through with this by the end of June, in the next month. And then it's sent off to the Board of Commissioners, and then the commissioners and the council. I would guess at the same time, and then we'll make our decisions. But y'all did a very good job, regardless. Very good job. Not as good as Ryan Smiley. Is he still here? Did he leave? But he's a pro at this, so. But very good job. Thank you very much. Yes.
There's someone else.
Somebody, yes, Dawn?
Oh, I got a question. Thank you. The Neighbors Educational Opportunity, I'm just wondering if that's the Vista in Portage. They had mentioned federal funds was that ESSER funds that they received? And how much from the ESSER funds?
I have to give you the exact amount, I'm gonna guess it was around $450,000. Thank you.
Glad to see you're paying attention, Don. Any other questions? Good night and thank you.
And the only other thing I wanted to let you all know, I think Commissioner Biggs, you know this, but, and probably Councilmember Brickner, but what we'll do is we'll prepare an agenda with a listing of all your projects and the new amounts. We always try to update the new amounts. And so that will be the agenda for your next meeting, so you'll see everything.
What is the date of our next meeting? Next Monday.
Monday.
Our final meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I'll get that prepared and give that to you, email it to you as soon as possible,
Okay.
probably tomorrow.
Okay. Thank
So
you.
you won't have to piece everything together. You'll see
Great.
along with- It'll probably be in order as they were presented, because that's how we've done it with the other committees.
Paper here to...
Oh, I know. I ended up just grabbing 4 at a time. Reminded me back in my college days when I threw my back out of my backpack.
Before computer?
Oh, yeah, exactly. I had to get a rolling one. It was just too much for 10 minutes.
Today, they got that laptop and the internet.
Oh, no, that
How's it going?
Good, how are you doing?
Fantastic.
So